Okay, let's talk about the Swiss roll. It is beautiful, it's so elegant, but for so many of us, it is a total baking nightmare. You know the feeling, right? You spend all this time making a perfect, light sponge, you go to roll it, and then crack. A giant, heartbreaking crack right down the middle. It's enough to make you just want to give up. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be that way?
I mean, look at that. That's a really bold promise from Nick Macreads at the Scran line. A crack-free Swiss roll that's also tender and cloud-like, guaranteed. When I saw that, I was like, okay, we have to figure this out. So that's our mission today. We've dug through the techniques from some of the best bakers out there to create, finally, a real blueprint for the perfect roll.
Let's just be honest. This is the whole reason we're here. We're here to solve the problem of the dreaded crack. Now, bakers like Vula from Pastry Wishes and John from Preppy Kitchen will tell you that overbaking is a huge problem. Because, a dry cake is a brittle cake. That makes sense. But it's actually more complex than just your oven timer. The real secret starts way, way before it even goes in the oven.
So here's the absolute key. A crack-free roll doesn't really happen when you're rolling it. It happens right here, when you're making the batter. You have to build flexibility and moisture right into the DNA of the sponge cake itself. And how you do that, well, that's where our experts start to disagree. So when it comes to the eggs, you've basically got two main schools of thought. On one side, you have bakers like Nick Macreads from the Scran line and Maryam from Cakes by MK. They separate their eggs. They whip up the whites into this beautiful, airy meringue to get maximum lightness. But then, on the other side, you have Vula from Pastry Wishes and Dinny from the Flavor Bender who use whole eggs. They argue it's just simpler and you can still get an incredible texture, as long as you whip them to a very specific point.
And that very specific point is called the ribbon stage. This is the secret weapon for anyone using whole eggs. Basically, you're beating the eggs and sugar together for like 5 to 8 solid minutes. The whole mixture gets thick, it gets pale, and when you lift up the whisk, the batter falls off in this thick ribbon that just kind of sits on the surface for a second before it melts back in. It's this awesome visual cue that tells you you've packed enough air in there to make it light, no separate meringue needed.
All right, let's talk fat. This is a huge deal. You might instinctively reach for butter because, flavor. But look at the con column here. That amazing flavor comes with a price. Butter sets up firm when it cools, and that actually encourages cracks. The overwhelming consensus from pretty much everyone, especially Nick Macreads, is to use oil. Sure, the flavor is more neutral, but its pro is exactly what we need. It keeps the cake super moist and pliable, and that is absolutely essential for a successful roll.
Okay, deep breaths. The sponge is baked. It looks perfect. We have now arrived at the most critical, high-stakes moment of this entire process, the roll itself. And this is where our experts have two completely, and I mean completely, opposite methods. This is the great roll debate. So here's the classic technique. It's championed by amazing bakers from Pastry Wishes, Cakes by MK, and Preppy Kitchen. The idea is to roll the cake while it's still piping hot, literally straight from the oven. The thinking here is that you're training the cake's muscle memory. So you flip the hot sponge onto a towel that's been dusted with powdered sugar, you peel off the parchment paper, and then right away, you roll it up with the towel inside. Then you just let it cool completely in that rolled up shape.
Now look, that traditional method has worked for generations. But let's be real, it's also where things go wrong for a lot of us. It can kind of squash the sponge, and it's definitely not a 100% guarantee against cracks. So it begs the question, what if all that frantic scrambling with a hot cake isn't even necessary? What if there's a more modern, more reliable way to do this?
And this is where Nick Macreads introduces what he calls a genius technique that he adapted from the legendary Stella Parks at Serious Eats. I mean, this quote really says it all. It completely throws the traditional wisdom out the window, and he swears it's the key to a guaranteed crack-free result. Okay, check this out. This is the modern roll cool method, and it's all about building a totally different kind of flexibility. With this steam trap technique, you do the complete opposite of the traditional way. Step 1. As soon as the cake is out of the oven, you cover the pan tightly with foil. Step 2. You just walk away. You let it cool completely right there in the pan. All that steam gets trapped inside and infuses the cake with moisture, making it incredibly pliable. So for step 3, there's no pre-rolling at all. You just take it out of the pan, fill it, and roll it. It is that simple.
So you did it. You have a beautiful, flexible, and most importantly, an uncracked sponge. The hard part is officially over. Now we can get to the fun part and focus on the little details that create that stunning, picture-perfect spiral that you see in fancy bakeries. Here are 4 super important tips from our experts for getting that perfect spiral. First, if you're using fruit, always pat it dry. You don't want a soggy cake. Second, if you're using jam, spread a very thin layer. Too much is just going to squish out the sides. Third, for your cream, leave a little border around all the edges. Again, this stops it from oozing out. And finally, a real pro tip from the Scran line. Pipe your cream on instead of spreading it. This gives you a perfectly even layer and a much, much cleaner spiral. And now for the final roll. Every single one of our experts agrees on this. Use the parchment paper or the towel that the cake is sitting on to help you. You use it to lift and guide the cake into a roll. You want to apply some even, gentle pressure to get a nice, tight spiral, but not so much that you squeeze all that beautiful filling out. It's a delicate balance, you know? Firm, but gentle.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? We've gone through conflicting methods and a lot of different techniques, but really it all comes down to a few key decisions that you get to make in your own kitchen. So let's build your personal blueprint for a perfect Swiss roll.
Here it is, your no-crack checklist. First, you got to decide on your egg method. Are you a separator or a whole egg person? Second, choose your fat. For maximum flexibility, the experts all agree, oil is the hands-down winner. And third, the big one, how are you going to roll it? While the traditional hot roll method definitely has its fans, this modern moisture-infusing steam trap method is what the pros are calling the most fuss-free, foolproof path to success. The choice is yours, but honestly, the evidence is pointing towards cooling it down.
And that's it! The fear of the crack? It's officially gone. You now have all the knowledge, all the techniques from multiple experts to bake a Swiss roll with total confidence. So the only question left isn't if you can do it, it's what incredible flavor combinations are you going to create now that you've mastered the perfect, cloud-like, and totally crack-free roll.